I got you.
All right, and that's going to lead us into our deep dive for today, and that's heading us up north, and specifically the NFC North, where we have the Lions, the Bears, the Vikings, and the Packers. I would say going into last season, this was definitely going to be one of the best divisions in football. The Bears kind of dropped the ball a little bit, but if they can figure it out, this still will be a very tough division. We've seen success in the playoffs from the Vikings and no playoff success, but still a very good team in the Packers because they have one bad man, Aaron Rodgers. But let's go ahead and start talking about the team that finished last in the division last season, and that is the Detroit Lions. Um, they still have Matt Patricia for some reason. Um, I wouldn't have him still there, but um, I kind of understand just from like being a Dolphins fan, switching coaches so much really does hurt your team. It doesn't even matter if the coach is good. Like just continuing to do that shit, like it just doesn't. Even if your team is good, as I meant to say, not your coach. If your team is good, it doesn't even matter because you just keep messing up the cohesion of the organization. So I can kind of understand that, but getting rid of Darius Slay to me and then just replacing him with Jeff Okuda doesn't really get the team anywhere improvement wise. They're just kind of still the same team to me. And I don't know if you guys seen, but Stafford came up positive for COVID and was put on that list. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. So maybe he can come back in 2 weeks, but that still might hurt his reps. And I mean, I know they're not going to have preseason anyways, but I don't know how it's going to hurt them. And I'm just not. I don't know why anybody would be high on the Lions. They're a terrible team, terrible organization most seasons. Stafford to me is criminally underrated sometimes, and they just never have a good team around him. And when they are doing good, it's because they had Megatron. And when you have a guy like Stafford throwing bombs to Megatron, how can it not work? But that dude, Stafford's always banged up. They usually never have a running game, even though I know the last couple seasons they have improved that. I'm just not real high on him. I'm going to go ahead and give this to Young E first because I know he's been doing his research and he didn't get to really talk in the last segment that much. So what is your take on the Lions, Young E?
I mean, I think for them it comes down to if Matt Stafford is healthy and plays a full season or not. I think if he can stay healthy, play a full season, I don't think they're that bad of a team. On Johnson out of the backfield, he's good, and then they went out and got DeAndre Swift in the draft. I was a little bit iffy on DeAndre Swift. I didn't think he was the best back in the draft, as many people did, but we'll see how that works out. They got a two-headed backfield now, and then they have good receiving core, really good receiving core with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones Jr. I love Kenny Golladay. I think in the next 3 years he's going to be a top receiver in the league. Once we start seeing Julio and DeAndre Hopkins start to slide a little bit with their age, I think we're definitely going to see somebody like Kenny Golladay come out and be a top receiver in the league. And then I know they got Hawkinson last year, and he's a really good tight end. So
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I think they're making the right moves. It just comes down to Stafford being healthy. They made some really good moves on defense this year too. I think Patricia, it's hard to judge him because the 2 seasons that he's been there, Stafford's been hurt and they've been really ass, and they just can't figure out the backup quarterback position. Like I've just seen, they just have the most random people in there. They just need to bring Colin Kaepernick in and call it good. But we know that's probably not going to happen. But on defense this year, they got Okuda, obviously. They brought in Jamie Collins to play on the edge, which I like that. We all know what he can do, longtime Patriot.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got a sleeper pick that I really liked. I wanted the Ravens to get him. They didn't. I'm going to botch his name. Julian Okwara from Notre Dame. He's an outside linebacker. He was projected high second-round pick. I was really pulling for the Ravens to get him. They passed on him, and he slid to the Lions in the 3rd round. Dude's a monster. If he's healthy, he will turn out to be one of the best players from last year's draft. He's just a beast on the field. So I think they can improve. I think we could see a 9-7 out of them if Stafford plays 16 games. Anything less than him playing 16 games is going to significantly fuck up their record.
Do you see him playing 16?
No.
That offensive line is horrendous.
I don't ever see Stafford playing 16. Offensive line isn't good. The offensive scheme isn't good. I don't know who their offensive coordinator is, but he's not good. So, I mean,
shots fired.
Other than that, their coaching staff is holding them back. I don't think Matt Patricia is a terrible coach, but he can't run the offense, and they don't have somebody to run the offense. So I don't know. They're in a tough place. And I could see Stafford getting hurt in week 2 and being out for 10 games, and by game 10 they are 2-8, and then they come out and they put up a 3-13 season.
Well, shit. All right. I respect it. What about you, Philanthropist?
I mean, I'm kind of with Ethan. I don't think the roster is that terrible outside of the offensive line. I think the coaching is really bad. A hole I see with them consistently is at running back. I know Kerryon Johnson had a good year last year, and then they got DeAndre Swift in the draft. But usually they don't really have a strong running game, so we'll see how that, boils down. But I feel like the Lions are just the CEOs of always having a really good receiving core, Like they always have 2 or 3 dudes who are money in fantasy. So watch out for that. But yeah, I agree. I think Matt Patricia sucks. I think the unnamed offensive coordinator sucks. And I don't know. I'm getting like a strong 6-10 feeling from this team. Maybe 5-11. Not horrible, but definitely not good.
I would have said maybe 6-10, but now that Stafford is now on the COVID list, I'm gonna say 4-12. It's just every year I see this dude literally almost die on the football field, and one reason why the running game is always bad is because their offensive line is terrible, and then that's what gets Stafford hurt. And it's just amazing to me how they continuously don't draft first-round offensive linemen. Like, right, they got Jeff Okudah this year, and the last year they got a tight end. And that's cool. Like, you need weapons, and you need corner play after losing Darius Slay. But at the same time, man, you have a franchise quarterback where you live or die by him. And it would be probably a little important if you protected him. So, Lions are one of those franchises that are kind of like the Kings and the Dolphins, right? They just continuously get it wrong year after year.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. I have a name for the offensive coordinator. Darrell Bevel. He was the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks from 2011 to 2017. And he was the offensive coordinator for the Lions last year. But all hate to him. He's trash, so.
Not a good look for the guy, Darren.
And you know what? I don't like Matt Patricia in the fucking press conferences. I just don't like the way he be up there looking. I think that just ruins the team, too. He just don't set the right vibe. You know what I mean? If you're going to be the coach, like Adam Gase, right? When he goes up in the press conference, he's not setting a good vibe. Yeah.
I got
like
you.
Bill Belichick, when he's sitting on that bench with the sandwich in his mouth, that's the vibe that you want from your coach, bro. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Matt Patricia's looking more and more like one of the coaches that are fallen way down from the Belichick tree. He'll probably be on the Patriots coaching staff again next season. And I have nothing more to say about the Lions, but I think they're going to finish last in the division once again.
I think they will too, but I will say I don't think, aside from one player, I don't think they have the worst roster in the division. Aside from one player.
You're going to say the Packers? Huh?
No, I'm going to go ahead and go with the next team we're going to talk about.
Okay.
If you take Khalil Mack away from the Bears, they are by far the worst roster in the division.
Are you kidding me? A team with 8 tight ends?
Exactly that.
Y'all both capping. I'm sorry, Chicago fans. We'll
No,
get to it.
I'm not agreeing with this.
Outside of Khalil Mack, who do you think is good on their team?
I can list them off if you'd like.
Go for it.
All right, let me pull them up real quick.
Allen Robinson is good, I guess. Sometimes.
Are we just forgetting that they have one of the best defenses in football? Is that just
have a
a
great
thing of the
defense.
past? Akeem Hicks, Danny Trevathan, Raquan Smith, Robert Quinn, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson.
Quinn was just signed.
I love Raquan Smith. He's really good.
All
He's
right.
going to be.
They have a good, solid
linebacker.
young defense, but I still think take Khalil Mack out of there. I think they have a worse lineup than the Lions do. Their offense is atrocious. Atrocious.
That's because of one person.
Let me go ahead and just introduce the Chicago Bears. Okay, we're talking about a team that was really looked like one of the up and coming teams, potentially with a superstar quarterback and one Mitch Trubisky.
Superstar.
But they had a very, very disappointing season in comparison to the one that they had 2 years ago. And in this season, Mitch Trubisky just declined after every game. After every game, he declined. And because of that, they have brought in Big Dick Nick Foles. So I'm really interested. I'm interested to see who's going to win this quarterback competition here. I will say one thing before I pass it off. Mitch Trubisky is not one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. Definitely makes me upset on literally almost every play that he makes. But I will also say, to be fair, that his offensive line is ass. And if you I watched some clips before this, just to kind of give my research and a fair assessment to Mitch Trubisky, because as these two know, I go hard in the paint on this dude. But after carefully dissecting his film, I've come to the conclusion that he is ass, but with potential. Okay, He has terrible footwork. And he has no confidence. And yes, that can be put on him, but at the same time, I feel like Matt Nagy kind of just gave up on him mid-season. That offensive line, if you see as the season went on, he just lost confidence in them. You know, he started out the season, first couple of games, standing in the pocket. I wouldn't say like very well or with good footwork, but you know, he was standing there sometimes, and I just feel like they're also not putting to his strengths. They're not putting the game plan out to fit his strengths, which is, in my opinion, he looks more like a running quarterback sometimes than he is a throwing quarterback. Like he does a very good job running. I think a lot of people don't talk about that. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to you guys. What do you think about the Bears, and where do you see any improvement from them this upcoming season?
All right. I already listed off the defense, so I won't reiterate that. They have a good defense. That's fine. The offense, the personnel, not the best. I'll give you that. Allen Robinson's a good receiver, but other than that, you were talking Cordarrelle Patterson, Ted Ginn.
Allen Robinson is very good. When I was watching Mitch,
yeah, he is.
Highlights.
It was good.
Allen Robinson highlight video.
He's a number 2 receiver, though. He's a number 2 receiver.
Definitely.
He's good, bro. Okay,
He's good. He's good. But anyway,
receiver.
The running game is a little bit better. I mean, they got David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen's a good triple threat. The problem is Mitch Trubisky, and he sucks. He's bad. We're talking. Look, we've already talked about Josh Allen, but we're really talking about diet Josh Allen. You know, he really needs to be running the football. He cannot. There's a video montage of him not throwing to his left. Have you seen that? He does not throw to the left side of the field. I don't know if he's scared, if he had a bad accident turning left when he was a child or something. He
has no receiver on the left side of the field. Who is it? Taylor Gabriel? Come on now, dude.
He's wet.
No, he's not. And they cut him this offseason. He's not even there anymore.
Kyle Shanahan made him look like a star in Atlanta. That's all I know. Anyway.
Star with 400 yards. Come on now.
But 3 touchdowns, though. Anyway, look, Mitch Trubisky, he's not good. He look, bless his soul, he cannot play the game of football at the quarterback position. Nick Foles, on the other hand, you know, one of the best backup quarterbacks of all time, potential starting quarterback. I think if he wins the job and he has any modicum of consistency, I think the Bears are going to improve rapidly. I think they might be 10-6. They might challenge for a wild card spot, especially now with
Wow.
7 seeds.
I'm very surprised by your 10-6 prediction. I thought you were going to come in with a 4-12.
Well, everybody is harping on the coach, Matt Nagy. They think that all of a sudden he's trash. He was the coach of the year 2 years ago, or like
Yeah.
he was a candidate. Like let's stop it on the hate train a little bit. They had a bad year because their quarterback is ass, like literal ass. Okay, let's let them get another quarterback in there that's not Chase Daniels, and let's see what happens. All right, they went 8-8 with Trubisky, so let's see what they do when they have consistent quarterback play.
All right, Young, you tell them about Trubisky and what you like about him.
So, here's what I'm gonna say. This is probably one of my favorite off-season stories is going to be this QB battle. I'm so excited to see who comes out on top. Ever since he's got drafted, I've had love for Trubisky, just for no reason at all whatsoever.
That's accurate.
He looks good. He looks good in that Orange Bears uniform, and that Orange Bears uniform with the number 10 with the Trubisky on the back. It looks clean. I gotta mess with it, and just for that, I've supported him since he's been drafted. And a lot of people hated him out the draft. I wasn't thrilled about number 1, especially with the quarterbacks that they had in that draft. And let's say he came from North Carolina, bro. You're not playing very good competition out there. So I don't know what they were doing with picking him number 1, but I support Mitch Trubisky. And if he comes out on top, I think he has potential. As Jordan said, he has not been great, but he has potential. But they got to build that offense around him a little bit. I don't think David Montgomery was good last year. I don't know if he's a good top 15 number 1 back. Tariq Cohen is okay, but very inconsistent. And he's also 5'7", so it kind of holds him back. All respect to him. He's a good player, but it does hold him back. Offensive line, absolute dog shit. Just super trash. They had Trey Burton for a while at tight end. He was good. They bring in Jimmy Graham this year, and I know they drafted a tight end in the 3rd round. But I don't know. I don't know about this team. I could see 6-10 big time. They had probably the worst draft out of all the teams. Like, just absolute garbage.
Do you see them finishing above the Lions?
Depends on if Matthew Stafford plays.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's what it
Give me a
comes down
fucking
to.
break.
If Matthew Stafford isn't playing, then the Bears will definitely surpass the Lions.
Hey,
and I think,
Ethan,
weirdly
put a
enough,
case of squirt on it. Put a case of squirt
weirdly
on that
enough,
assertion.
this is a division where I don't think I would be necessarily surprised if any of these 4 teams won or lost the division.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
Okay,
if the
I would be
Lions,
surprised if the Lions won.
if Stafford stayed healthy the whole year and the Lions went 10-6 and won the division and it was really competitive and they pushed 3 teams into the playoffs, I could see the Lions coming out on top of the division. Same goes with the Bears. I could see if Nick Foles came out and was good and not how he looked in the Jags uniform last year, they could be a team that goes 10-6. Or if Trubisky comes out of that with some confidence and the team plays well around him and he actually steps his shit up, they could go 10-6 as well. I think 10-6 could win that division, and that's why I think it's such an open division. Because I think 10-6
It's always competitive, yeah.
And who knows what the Vikings are going to look like? I know we're going to talk about them next, but who knows what they're going to look like after all their changes this offseason?
Definitely. I think this might be the right place for Nick Foles. Just the way he carries himself, he just kind of reminds me of he just seems like a good fit in Chicago and kind of what they got going on there. As far as like a city's culture, just the way like Bears players, need to be sometimes. I think Big Dick Nick Foles can really come in and be that player. But I think people still need to give Mitch a shot after reevaluating him. I wouldn't necessarily trust him with my team, but if I have some good players around him, I would give him some time. He's got the potential. I don't know if he's got the mentals to go with it. There's a lot of times where he just makes the wrong read, but that can come down to coaching too. So Matt Nagy maybe just needs to put a little bit more time into it. But if he's just ready to give up on him, then I got no problem with them putting Nick Foles in. I think that was a great pickup, and I don't think they can really go wrong with either one. And I'm just like Young E said, I'm excited to see who comes out on top of this. And they could be, in my opinion, they could be like an 11-5 team, and they can also be like a 6-10, 5-11 team. So we'll see. And that leads us on to our next team. And that is a team that surprised everybody last season and went down to New Orleans. And they won on they won in it was overtime, right? And it was on the last play with because it was the last play because it was a touchdown. But Kirk Cousins, he really looked at all of his haters and asked if they liked that. And I tell you what, man, I like that shit a lot. I like Kirk Cousins, and when he's having his highs, man, he's definitely, he plays like a top 10 quarterback, but there's just times, man, where he really lets me down. But I'm excited to see with all of the changes that they've had, if Kirk Cousins can really show that he earned and deserves that contract extension that he did get. I know Young E used to be, and probably still is, a huge fan of Kirk Cousins. I don't know if the love for that has gone down a little bit, but when he was in Washington, Young E swore he was like a top 5 quarterback.
He was pounding the table about
that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just throw it to you, Young E, because I know that you know a little bit more about the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. So what do you think they can improve on what they did last season? And by that I mean, are they able to maybe take the next step and head to an NFC championship?
I think they are in a really good place. They have a fantastic coach. I do want to say these final 3 teams, including the Bears, probably have some of the best coaches in the NFL. Like I would say all 3 of them are top 10, and that's with what's his face from the Packers. That last year was his first year, but
Matt LaFleur,
fantastic coach.
Nope, I don't like more. But go ahead.
Mike Zimmer, really good coach, and I think they euthanized. They
They what?
They brought some youth into that defense. They got Linval Joseph out of there. They got Xavier Rhodes out of there, and we know. I don't know how many Vikings games you guys watched last year, but Xavier Rhodes was getting just toasted the entire year. He was an absolute liability, and it was just his history in a Vikings uniform makes you not able to sit him on the bench. They needed the entire year to sit him on the fucking bench. I watched him lose probably 2 games for them single-handedly. It was just bad. So I'm glad they got him out of there. And then they got rid of Stephon Diggs, which surprised me because I know he wanted out of there a lot after last season. And then towards the end of the year, it kind of seemed like they had figured it out and he was going to stick it through, and they got rid of it with the Bills.
Remember the game against the Saints? He was throwing his helmet and shit because he wasn't getting the ball, even though they were winning the game.
In the final game?
Yeah.
I think that only helps them, though. I do. They bring in Justin Jefferson, who is a similar playmaker. I don't think he's Stephon Diggs' talent level, but he also isn't bringing the baggage that Stephon Diggs has. And don't get me wrong, I love Stephon Diggs. I just think he needed out of Minnesota. I don't think he was a fit there. He needs to be the number 1, and in Minnesota, he was not the clear number 1. Adam Thielen is a fucking beast. He is one of my favorite receivers in the NFL. Dude is a monster. Love that guy. So, Stephon Diggs moves on to the Bills. I think he plays a big role there. I could see a 1,600-yard season out of him over there, but I can, if you really want me to say it.
That's not a dig on Stephon Diggs, no pun intended. That's a dig on Josh Allen being able to throw 1,600 yards.
I would just say
I'll save that.
See half of his yards going to Stephon Diggs. So
that's fair. That's fair.
I just think they've done a good job with this team, and I'm interested to see what they can come out and do. I think they have potential to be a 12-4 top 3 seed in the NFC. If Kirk can come out and have his good games, and Adam Thielen can stay healthy, and Kyle Rudolph can somewhat contribute, and then you get Justin Jefferson in there. I think they've got a solid team. Honestly, I was not going to talk about Dalvin Cook until hot takes, but I'll come at it a little early because I got a couple hot takes today.
Okay.
In my opinion, Dalvin Cook is a top 3 running back in the league, and
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would say he's maybe above Zeke and behind Saquon, but it's all very, very close. Dalvin Cook is a beast, dude.
Derrick
Uh,
Henry.
I'm with Ethan on that. I'm with
I'd
him.
put Derrick Henry top 5, but I don't know if he's one of those elite backs in the league. Derrick Henry's like,
I'm putting him above Zeke.
I wouldn't say he's a one-dimensional back, but he's not going to catch the ball as much as these other guys can. Dalvin Cook can consistently put up, and we're sleeping on Christian McCaffrey too. I might put Christian
Hey,
McCaffrey.
that's some good running backs.
That's fair. Yeah, there are good
But
running backs out there.
Dalvin Cook can easily put up 2,500 scrimmage yards throughout the year, and I can see him potentially in 2-3 years maybe pushing that record for rush yards and scrimmage yards that AP did, because they're just so good at building that position and doing the right things to build around that, building the offensive line and the offensive scheme to make it fit to where either we're going to run play action and Kirk Cousins is going to complete 76% of his passes, or we're going to hand the ball off and Dalvin Cook is going to get 6 yards a carry.
Okay. I was gonna ask you guys too. Do you see? Obviously, losing a talent like Diggs is gonna hurt your team a little bit. Like you said, the numbers may go down. But I'm also wondering, is it a possibility that this could open up more plays for not just Adam Thielen, of course, but just everybody else? Will it allow Kirk to maybe spread the ball out a little bit more and add more dynamic to their offense?
I definitely think so, and I think it brings less stress to Kirk. I
Yeah.
think, all season Kirk has to think, if I don't throw him the ball, he's going to throw a fucking fit after this game. So I got to at least throw him the ball 5-6 times, even if he fucking drops it 4 out of those 5 times. So I think it's going to help them in the long run. I really do. And like I said, no disrespect to Stephon Diggs. He's a fantastic player. I just think he needs to be number one, and in Minnesota, it was not going to happen.
And he's going to get a chance to do that up in Buffalo. So I'm interested to see that. What do you got to say about the Vikings, young Philly?
Yeah, I agree with Ethan. I think the Vikings are a top 5 football team in the league. They have an excellent roster, excellent head coach with Mike Zimmer. And, I really come around on Kirk Cousins, too. I think there's a class of quarterbacks where they're not top 5, they're not elite, but I call them like a minimum viable championship quarterback, where it's like, if you want to win a championship, you have to have a quarterback that's at least this good. It's like an example of that would be Joe Flacco in 2012. Like, he was not a world beater by any means, but he was, if you had any chances of winning a championship, you needed a quarterback that was at least as good as Joe Flacco. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
So, like, 20 years ago, that was Trent Dilfer, and that was a different story. But nowadays,
I don't
it's
know.
guys like Kirk Cousins.
Bro, it wasn't Trent Dilfer. They won that Super Bowl like 39-7. I'm gonna just tell you,
That's true. Yeah,
the
yeah.
defense put up 14 points in that game. It
Much more
wasn't
extreme.
Trent Dilfer.
Much more extreme, yeah. But you
It's
know what I'm
probably
saying,
that's
though.
probably the most extreme case. But
Guy,
yeah,
I would
with
say,
Flacco, like maybe
I,
Jimmy G. You could throw Jimmy G in that.
I would say Jimmy G is a step below that. I think Jimmy G needs to progress a little bit more before he's good enough to win a championship.
number
And I think
43.
number 43.
43.
Get out of here with number 43, bro. That shit made me so
The
mad.
43rd best player in the NFL last year. Are you
I
for
think-
real right now?
I think if you want to win a championship, you need to have a quarterback that's at least as good as Kirk Cousins, who's probably a top 12 quarterback, maybe top 10.
If they can stick to their guns, stick to their game plan, which should be running the ball.
Yep.
Maybe when that's not working, find just a way to give the ball to Dalvin Cook with some screens, some swing passes. Make sure the play action is working. Get Thielen down the field. Get Justin Jefferson involved on some slants, some quick screens, and just play good defense. If they can do that, control the ball, control time of possession, I can see this team being, like you said, a 12-4 team. I think Kirk Cousins is getting more comfortable there too. I feel like he's one of those players that just needs to build his confidence, and it's going to take a while. And I see him getting there definitely. I could see like 10-6 to 12-4, very solid team. I would say that they have the highest floor out of all of the teams in the division. Being their floor being 10-6, and I don't know if you guys want to move on to the Packers, but Packers I could see their floor being a lot lower than that.
I don't want to talk about the Packers. They're just such a.
I'm not high on the Packers either.
Mess of an organization right now. I'm very upset with them.
All right, I guess we could just jump right into that. We have the Green Bay Packers, who, despite sometimes looking not that good last season, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and I guess you could say defensively too, they were really carried, it seems sometimes, by Aaron Rodgers. Despite that 13-3 record, I think we talked about it in the previous weeks. Their margin of winning was very low in comparison to other good teams. So,
right,
that 13-3 record could have very well been a 10-6, maybe potentially a 9-7 sometimes. And with this division just getting better, I don't know about the Lions improving that much, like I said, but the Bears, they could be a lot better, and the Vikings seem to be just putting it together. They're consistently good. Even when they didn't have Kirk Cousins there, they were still a very solid team.
Right.
And I think this might be potentially the year that they take the step to win the division, because we have the Green Bay Packers, instead of wanting to improve the team now, it looks like they're trying to improve the team in the future, which makes no fucking sense to me why you would go for in the draft when it's one of the deepest wide receiver drafts, and maybe the quarterback that you wanted to replace Aaron Rodgers could have been there in the second round. Now Aaron Rodgers is mad, and they didn't really do much to improve the team, in my opinion. And I don't know. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is either going to go out there and show Matt LaFleur why Aaron Rodgers should be mad in the first place. But I just think Aaron Rodgers is getting tired of having to carry the team, especially with the lack of wide receivers. And, you could say what you want about his wide receivers in the past, but they usually don't play that well as soon as they leave him. So, sometimes I feel like the team just thinks that he's going to be the superhero for them at all times. And I think it's kind of stupid and naive to think that Jordan Love could even touch any level that Aaron Rodgers was on. And, before we seen Mahomes, a lot of people said Aaron Rodgers was probably the greatest talent at quarterback that we've ever seen. Maybe besides Dan Marino comes to mind, right, with his arm talent. But we've never seen anybody like Aaron Rodgers before. And it's just really sad to me and very upsetting. Like, I don't even really want to talk about anything else with the Green Bay Packers, because I think that's where they fall apart, is they made that their franchise player, the greatest player that they probably ever had, besides Reggie White. It's just unfathomable to me that they wouldn't want to improve the team after going 13-3, going to the NFC Championship game, one game away from the Super Bowl. And that I would have even been happy if they drafted a defensive player in the first round to improve that awful defense that gave up over 200 yards rushing to the 49ers. So
say that again? Say that again, Jordan. I like the sound of that.
Over 200 yards rushing. Fucking Jimmy G didn't even have to dress up that day, and they still would have won.
Threw the ball fucking 7 times.
So, what do you guys? Are you guys in agreement with me about the Packers that this may be a down year, or do you see them potentially going to be a contender in the Super Bowl? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I don't think they were really that good last year. I think that razor-thin margin really just came down to good coaching and good game management by Aaron Rodgers. And that really brings up a bigger issue I see with the team, is that really the scheme they're running now, they're obviously very run-heavy, and Rodgers has really been almost, I want to say, relegated to the role of a game manager, where he's so smart, he's not going to force anything. So he obviously has led the league in throwaways many times just to make the smart play. And that works, but it also doesn't because I mean, if you put someone like Aaron Rodgers in a scheme where he's just doing game manager stuff, he's going to be the best game manager of all time, you know, because he can make any
Yeah.
throw.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is when you get to a stage where you're outmatched like they were against the 49ers, all of a sudden you have to throw away everything you were doing the entire season and go right back to shotgun snaps the entire game. Let's try and throw our way out of this, where you haven't been doing that as an organization. And to be frank, you don't have the weapons to do that. Devontae
Yeah.
Adams is clearly, one of the best receivers in the league. I'd even say top three. But him by himself is not enough for Aaron Rodgers to work with. And really, it wasn't even that they picked Jordan Love this year. It's that they've never drafted a receiver in the first round the entire time Aaron Rodgers has been there. That's negligence at that point. Give the man some weapons. If you're not going to get it in the draft, get it in free agency, and you don't. So he's obviously one of the biggest erasers. He erases a lot of mistakes that the front office makes. But yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Jordan Love. I know there's some people that are high on him, but Rodgers is 35, 36. There's clearly a blueprint now in today's NFL where quarterbacks can play into their early 40s. So we're talking at least 4 or 5 years left of Rodgers. I think that's plenty of time to not worry about drafting a quarterback yet. So I don't see why they did this. I guess if they just run it back, I don't see why they couldn't go 10-6, 11-5, make a push for the division title. But I could also see them going 8-8 and having a lot of issues. So I guess we'll just see, how it goes with that run first scheme if Aaron Jones can put together another great season. But yeah, I'm not very high on this team this year. I'd say I have the Vikings taking it personally.
It's very hard to be a game manager when your team sucks around you.
You're not wrong.
Like, think about like the two last really successful game managers. Well, okay, I guess I would say the last two teams that I've seen do it really well, and they were both led by Alex Smith. And Alex Smith had great weapons around him both times, whether it was with the Chiefs or the Niners.
But it's a stretch to say they don't have a good team.
I wouldn't go
there. I agree.
I definitely think that's a very,
but I
very
think they're
deep
dropping the
stretch.
ball on improving it to being a great team.
Well, they are. So here's what I've seen. I was really disappointed in them this offseason because a lot of free agency talk. We were going to get a second receiver in there. And they signed Devin fucking Funches. I mean,
out, by the way.
Are we really serious? And then he opts out, which no disrespect to him, but I mean, really, you need a solid number 2 receiver, and you're gonna go sign a 3 or 4 guy. And there were so many receivers available. Then we go into the draft, which they have a really solid young core. I don't know how much you guys know about their defense,
Yes.
but they have
Decent,
Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark is a stud. Adrian Amos, Kevin King, Jair Alexander make up a top 3 secondary in the league, and Jair Alexander is only going to get better. I think that dude in 2-3 years is going to be the best corner in the league. He's a fucking beast, but they don't really have a solid linebacker group. They could improve beyond those few guys and the pieces, and we did see that in the Niners game last year. So to see them come into the draft, I wasn't necessarily surprised they took a quarterback, but I was surprised that they took a quarterback in the first round. I was surprised that then they proceeded after last year getting so much production from Aaron Jones, who's like 26. He's very young, another piece of their very young, solid core. And then they had a really solid production from Jamal Williams as well. Then they're going to go out and get A.J. Dillon, who is a good running back, don't get me wrong, but why the fuck are you getting another running back in the second round?
Great question.
When there's plenty of receivers. There was receivers available into the really high quality receivers into the 4th, 5th, even 6th rounds. Like I know the Ravens got 2 really high quality receivers at 3 and 6. So I don't really know what they were doing this offseason. They let Jimmy Graham go, which I think was a good move. They did not make any move to bring in anybody to replace him. They brought in Mercedes Lewis, who hasn't been a starting tight end in 3 years, and I'm pretty sure he's like 36. Dude's been playing since I was fucking born, bro. Like, I don't know what they're doing. But again, great coach, a really good young core. They probably have a top I would say they're probably the second best big three in the league with Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers, only behind Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek Hill. But beyond that big three, their offense is very, very weak. And their defense is very top heavy as well. And they don't have depth. I always see them every year. They have an offensive line injury or a
Yeah.
defensive injury, and I don't know if it's the organization. Maybe I get spoiled a bit as a Ravens fan. I see a lot of undrafted free agents or fifth, sixth round picks come in, backup roles. They come in for somebody and they're really good, and then they end up filling a starter role for our team or another team later on. But the Packers, they just really don't have it. And you know what I don't even see. We're gonna wait 2 years for Jordan Love to play probably, and then who knows how much that hurts his development. And then AJ Dillon is going to be a third string running back for 2 years, so that hurts his development. It's just I don't know where they're going. I don't know what the plan was after the draft to develop the players that they drafted.
I don't know what the plan was in general when they hire Matt LaFleur. Did they say to him, "Hey, after this season, we're going to allow you to rebuild the team that you want to, build it like," and then they just went 13-3 by accident, and then they just went ahead and went with the plan anyways? Like I honestly don't know what they're doing. If you're a franchise and you're one game away from the Super Bowl, you would think that you would do anything, especially when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, not just a Hall of Fame quarterback, but one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen underneath center. You would think that you would try just a little bit of something, man. At least make a small trade. Do something.
And not to mention they had cap space and good picks. They had, all the pieces to go out and improve their team, and there were players available. It's not like it was a, you know, low wide receiver draft or a low
They could
wide
have got
receiver
Sanders,
free agent class.
Emmanuel
I,
Sanders.
I
Yeah.
mean that, and they could have gotten a cheap linebacker or even a higher end linebacker. Like I know when they picked there was a few good inside linebackers still available in the draft. So I just don't really know what they were doing.
And not to mention they traded up to get Jordan Love. It wasn't like he just fell to them. They went up and got him.
Mhm.
So it really, I don't even know what they're doing, and it just makes me sad for Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. And I know at that point when they traded it, Patrick Queen was still available, who's a stud, and the guy the Chargers got too, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's really good too. So
Yeah, it was a big surprise.
Just a mess.
What do you guys see as their floor and their ceiling?
I actually think they have a high floor, to be honest with you. Like, despite all we've said, still a pretty decent roster.
Mm-hmm.
I would say floor 9-7. Ceiling, I mean, I don't see why they can't go 12-4 in like a best case scenario. Like essentially if they just run it back, do everything the same way they did, get consistent. I mean, to be honest with you, Aaron Rodgers had a down year last year. I mean, down year in quotation marks, because I think he had something like high 20s touchdowns and not more than 8 interceptions. So it's a down year for his standards. But if he comes out slinging, if they open up the playbook a little bit more, I don't see why they can't have a great year. My bigger concern would just be with their offense and whether or not guys like Marquise Valdez-Scantling can actually step up and be a number two. And then, say what you want about Jimmy Graham not being who he used to be, but he was somebody and he could get reliable production from him. So I have very big questions about their offense, to say the least.
He's not there anymore, right?
Nope. He moved on to the Bears.
Yes.
Yeah.
With their 10 other tight ends.
And replaced him with Mercedes Lewis.
Yep.
Matt Nagy loves tight ends.
Youngie, what do you think? The ceiling and floor.
I would say their floor is probably 8-8. I think it's hard, with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback to do anything less than 8-8. And then, you add in that defense and those centerpieces that they have. I can't see him going any less than that. Honestly, I don't really see him going less than 10-6. But worst case scenario, they could go 8-8 if everything just fell apart. Ceiling, I would say 13-3 again. I think they could probably do the same thing they did last year. Maybe they hear all the bitching and complaining, and before we hit the trade deadline, they bring in a receiver, and do what they needed to do for 3 fucking years. But who knows? And we'll see. There was a lot of just questionable moves this offseason, and we'll see how it pans out for them.
Can I tell you boys who they really need?
Who?
I'm gonna show you.
Dwayne Allen. No,
Greg Jennings. Let's
they
go.
bring Dwayne Allen in at tight end, bro. You're getting 1,000.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's a good call. They do need Dwayne Allen.
I was really looking forward to seeing Aaron Rodgers in this offense his second year, being able to grow upon just being it's the first year. It's gonna take some adjustment. So I was really flabbergasted that they went in the direction that they went in. And I was really hoping that, they would have looked at the loss last, in the playoffs and went like, hey, maybe we can get someone like you said, Patrick Queen in the first round. And then, I don't know, make a trade for someone who was available. Like I would have liked to see them just maybe throw 2 first rounders. If you're going to use the first round on Jordan Love, use 2 first rounders and we'll get Odell. The Browns would have definitely taken that deal. Make a risk play like that. The Packers never fucking do it, and I think Aaron Rodgers would have really appreciated if you did that. You have the dude for another 3 to 4 years. You gave him this huge contract extension, and then you're going to do that shit to him. It makes no sense. And I understand that the Packers organization has like this big head about, we can bring in any quarterback and do well because of what they did with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. But they got to understand that both of them in their own ways are generational talents, and it's very hard to do that. They got very lucky.
That's once in a lifetime luck to go back to back with guys like that. I don't give them any credit for developing them.
Yeah, and Jordan Love, he does seem to have a lot of potential, but like I said, to think that he'll end up being something like Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, it's just very wishful thinking, especially when you're already giving up assets to go get him. It just doesn't make sense to me, but we'll see. Do you guys have any more that you want to say about any of the NFC North teams? Or actually, who do you think, the Packers or the Vikings, are going to win? It kind of seems like you guys are heading towards both of those. Who do you see?
Personally, I have the Vikings. I think this is going to be their year.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the Vikings' year. I think it'll come down to probably the last game of the season, but I think the Vikings will win the division.
I say Vikings as well.
One other take I have for this division, though, I think this is going to be one of the divisions that has 3 playoff teams. Personally,
okay.
This or the NFC West. Just depends.
Yeah, I think those 2 teams are going to be, or those 2 divisions are going to compete for 3 teams. And then my fantasy player out this division.
Okay.
I already talked about him earlier, Kenny Golladay. Beast. Just see what he did last year with fucking Jeff Driscoll playing quarterback. Who knows what he can do with somebody.
I hope you know.
Wrong.
I'm listening every week to your picks. I hope you know that.
Good.
Draft an Ethan Lee team.
Yeah, there we go.